You may be wondering, you know what the subject matter is today. So we're going to talk about succession and exit planning. But why Clearwater Capital? Why are we bringing this group together? And I'd like to tell you a little bit about the role that we play in this kind of succession and exit process for business owners. So we fit as a family's chief financial officer. The family will set the mission and vision and direction for how they operate. But we serve directly with the owner and through our strategic partners in our multifamily office network to implement that vision and direction for the family. We don't function within the business, but that business is an asset on the family's balance sheet, and it is often one of the largest assets on that family's balance sheet. So we work together with families to craft and implement integrated wealth strategies, estate, investment, tax, risk strategies. In fact, there's a lot of different services that usually come into play with a family office, and we deliver many of them ourselves in-house. But when we do not, and we partner with other groups, we're going to bring in vested, excellent partners to the table, and that's how we partner together with Family Wealth Alliance. So through Family Wealth Alliance and what we're doing in-house with our families, we're delivering all kinds of services to them. If you think about a family that's going to go through an exit with their privately held business, going through the exit, the technical event is one thing in and of itself. But we also prepare the family for what it's going to be like before and after that exit. They're going to need to align, and if they're going to have a good life-giving experience through this and have an excellent outcome, that family is going to need an estate strategy that aligns, a wealth transfer strategy that aligns, tax, risk. If you think through so many of these different aspects that needs to be, and philanthropic work, what good would they like to do in the world once they come through this business exit? And then many times they'll acquire something else and go through an exit again. I see lots of nodding heads. So we've worked together with families with that strategy too. So we sit in the seat of the family chief financial officer for the families that we work with. I'd like to tell you, though, what we're going to see in the marketplace. And as we sit in this seat and want great outcomes and do get great outcomes for the families that we work with, we are seeing a bit of a different phenomenon in the general marketplace. So according to the Exit Planning Institute and their Owner Readiness survey, we see that 73% of privately held business and companies in the US are going to plan to transition within the next 10 years. There's a lot of cash on the sidelines right now, but this could be a pretty crowded marketplace. So if you think about your family and privately held business and you're in this marketplace where 73% of your peers may be in it, I think a real distinction is going to be the planning ahead, looking ahead, and working with the right partners. The 73% of owners that plan to go through a succession or exit is going to represent a $14 trillion opportunity for family held and privately held businesses within this time period. So many of the owners would like to pass that business to family, but only about half have had a formal discussion about succession. And unfortunately, about 30% only are making a successful transition to a child. Why is that? This stat might represent one idea. 45% of family-held business owners have never had a family meeting pertaining to that business. And so that would be one major reason. We also see the statistic that 20 to 30% of businesses that go to market successfully sell. So that's leaving a lot of owners without a way to harvest the wealth they've built, sometimes over half a lifetime, sometimes over a whole lifetime. And yet, 70% of owners are saying that in the same study, they're saying they need the income from that business. It's essential to maintain their lifestyle. It's also essential to do all the good that they like to do with for their family, for generations of family to come, for their stakeholders, their loyal employees that they've worked with, and also for the philanthropic causes that they care about so much as a family. So that's why we're here, and that's why we're having this event, because we want better outcomes for the families that we work with. We want better outcomes for the businesses in our community, and for all the stakeholders, and for the causes that are going to benefit from that. We know these good outcomes come from a couple different things, and you'll hear these themes again and again today. These outcomes come best when we're planning ahead, when we know our options and alternatives, and when we get wisdom from those that have walked through this process and those that have guided families successfully through the process. So we've lined up a fast-paced, taste of, segmented event, and we're going to hear about options and succession and exit and alternatives. We're going to hear about getting the business ready within the business for this exit. We're going to hear from a panel talking about demystifying the process of a third-party sale. Many owners are not ready for what's going to come with that. If we just think about the words due diligence, several are nodding that have been through exits. We really need to prepare for that. Knowing the buyer perspective as far as what they're looking for, we've got a great panel lined up for that too. And then we're going to hear from owners about the owner experience, because it's not just the transaction and the math that needs to work out, it's the human beings that are involved. It's our owners, it's our families, it's the causes we care about. And again, all those stakeholders that rely on that business for a community. So we want to hear from our peers as far as their experience in the exit. We also are going to have an opportunity afterwards to dig deeper and build community over a few beverages and a couple of snacks out on the veranda out there. So we're going to watch a clip from Kip Pendleton, which we almost watched on the boardroom perspective. And then we're going to welcome our speaker about family options and alternatives. So I'll introduce him now. But I'm going to give a little background and won't just directly read the bio. In my prior work, I helped families gift complex assets to causes and people that they loved, and I still do that. But I felt called to move earlier into the pipeline and into the process, because I saw how chaotic it could be in the middle of a transaction. I love where I worked. They do that work amazingly well. And I love the families that we were working with, but I realized a lot of the preparation to have a life-giving process that would have amazing outcomes, this work started years before, and typically with the advisor, that chief financial officer that was watching out for the family. So in this highly complex work, I knew that I would draw on all of the prior education that I had in law, finance, venture capital, private equity study, but it would require a large body of knowledge that I didn't have and an amazing team to pull this off on behalf of families. So in that work, I worked with about 100 different advisors in the channel that I worked with over advisory firms, and one stood out to me, operating at the high level of excellence, complexity, and care for the families. And you've already heard from our incredible founder who worked for 4 decades on Wall Street, and then he was on Wall Street at the beginning of that career, but then had the courage to go start the firm that he wished he would have encountered on Wall Street. So that's our founder. And then within our incredible firm that he started, there's one individual that had the experience that I knew I could learn from, and these families would need as we see this great wealth transfer, as you see all of these businesses that are getting ready to exit. There's one individual that I knew was operating at this high level when it came to these kinds of exits and transactions. You may say, Val, really 1 out of 100? Well, we're about to find out why. Executive partner at Clearwater Capital Partners, John Sleeting. He's also our managing partner of Clearwater Capital's family office.
Woo-hoo, John.
Exactly. With over 30 years in the finance and capital markets, John's uniquely positioned to serve families and a select group of ultra high net worth clients and families with the development, integration, and overall strategy building, their overall wealth strategy, pre-exit, during exit, and post-exit for a life-giving experience. because he works with families on their investment portfolio, and we together do that: estate and wealth transfer, strategic philanthropy, administration, and you better believe when there's a successful exit and cash flow, you're gonna need some family governance and education. So we work together on that well. John strives to serve and does serve as oftentimes as the family's chief financial officer. He is also nationally recognized and on the advisory board of the Family Wealth Alliance, along with other folks that serve families like Rockefeller Capital, tiny family there. So John works collaboratively with our team and with families and all the professionals that we saw on that grid to provide the services that will be needed for a family to have an excellent integrated exit and entrance into what comes next for their family, which is often reinvestment, investment in philanthropy, and going out and doing wonderful things in their family for generations and out in the world. Long before this work, though, John, in his prior work, learned his way around a corporate balance sheet, investments, and divestitures. Beginning in the United States Coast Guard, co-managing $2 million operating budget, John then went to GE Capital Management, where he had lead roles in finance and risk management. I'm not going to read this whole bio. Believe me, I'm just hitting the highlights here. Motorola then came next, where he was responsible for acquisition, integration, and divestiture strategies all over Asia. GE Capital wanted him back then, so they made him vice president of pricing and financial structuring, where he drove the capital allocation and investment strategy for the $20 billion health financial services business. That role then culminated at GE when he was an executive lead of GE Capital's $40 billion syndicated loan operation, directing investments in capital education to businesses. So John knows his way around large-scale corporate transactions and now harnesses that knowledge and experience for the benefit of our families and the influences to the cause and people that they care about. He weaves technical excellence together, and this is key, with greater meaning and purpose. I just want to emphasize there's excellence in transaction and there's competency, but character as well. And I think maybe that's what our founder was thinking when he founded his own firm, because he wasn't finding it where he was looking. That is such a key element to our practice and to John as he works with every family, is not just to have an excellent outcome and have the very best math, but to have a meaningful experience that will make a difference in the world. Really thinking with families, why are we doing this? And what good can we do? If we're gonna maximize and optimize, let's do that for a reason that's meaningful. John works, I can just think of one family right now where he works and has sat on the holding company board for over a decade. So he's walked with that family, not only managing their family and corporation, but also he's led them through a large transaction. This is a typical function for John with our family office families. And it might seem like a lot of complexity and moving parts, but for John, that's any given Monday. And it's an honor to work with him.